기부 중원다 투모의 람예림바 러장화디 주에대 그 생각도 나 안젤레 함께와 치마 안에 치마더니 지진 치마더니 율로 르게다 되네 제네 지진 치마더니 치미 나는 대화 가서 대화 주베 탑된 바세 중거와 되네 자당 저기와 안기부 중에게 람이름바 냠는 지에디다 아주 조디 디레다 안데 개와 치마더니 율로게 바세디 최고르디 고미아 찍디샤고 치반더니 르게 바세디 나디 치마더니 율로게 바세디 간디실라 그랬으나 당 도스나 삼다제 단다라 아니 저기 그 동화 타달을 줘야지 타바다 탐지기미 고방 토고도 제사다 되네게 제텔레네 수수라게 냠랭강도도 지야다 대개와 치만음소 이나야 개마 치원데 마야 아니 제게 양 된주기 된 먼저 리딘 톱지 된델이야 아니 탈바 토베가 람냠랭지야다 잠니 조금이야 자주 셈냠랭지 투베기 된 해바진지 토고도 새벽에 삼다 디 토고도 셈배 삼다이다 제사 되네 냠는 제발랑 만손을 깨봐야 되는 냠는지하고 가버려고 말 제사 잠니 제 전주 셈 냠는 제발라 안 된켜봐지 고도 된산데 깨봐치마이네야 되네게 냠는 제도에 된켜봐지 농원되고 봐 토바지 스베 토고도 셈배 디삼머리다 치마더니 로시고다 디간도 공부해야 돼 기부 충의와 투명함 유진바 자야 지레다 디 되네게 삼머리 깨봐치마 당 원되고 봐 되네게 되네게 듬바 삼머리 쥐마 많이 비지 깨봐 있는다 기부 충의의 남유리바 줄에 깨봐래 이거래
Good evening. We started a couple of, maybe 2 or 4 weeks ago, we started to look at the actual trainings that are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. And we've then, and the trainings that are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity presents the method to generate a strong determination to strive to accumulate the causes for excellent future rebirths. And the primary method to achieve such an attitude is to be mindful of the impermanence of our precious human rebirth. This comes about, this cultivation of this determination to accumulate the causes for excellent rebirths comes about through recognizing that on the basis of this life that we have all achieved, we can accumulate the causes that will lead to our desired result, that being enlightenment. So in this very life, we can accumulate the causes that will eventually lead to our attainment of enlightenment. But those accumulation of such causes will take an extensive period of time, in that one needs to meditate deeply on ethics, on generosity, on patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, wisdom, as well as love, compassion, and so forth. A number of causes that need to be cultivated deeply within, and this will take lifetimes. But where I am right now, as a very ordinary being, there is still entirely the possibility that when death befalls me, I may well fall to the lower realms. And if I fall to the lower realms, not only will my suffering be intense, but my capacity to continue spiritually developing, continue progressing towards enlightenment will cease. So therefore, in order to attain enlightenment, I have to also accumulate the causes that will achieve excellent rebirths. So this reflection here is how a practitioner engages in the trainings which are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity. So they have the overall goal of enlightenment. But therefore, these trainings are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity, not identical to.
jam yeje chanju sim yamlen je tuye gi den da jin yamlen je ba den kya ba ji go go shan le phan ba du ba ne den gi den kya ba ji go go rang ni ji bu ge sam da ba ne den gi den kya ba ji na ne de gi tu tu go de ne za da den gi den jam yeje chanju sim kya ba ji mi chue nyam su yang su yamlen je tuye gi den kya ba jen de kya wa chi mai na den kya ba ji won de go ba ma de tab min de di to go du sam be ge da di sam lo di 다 야네 야도 고미에 찍디고 디공부 디 야네 야도 삼도 고미도 근데 디니기 디 삼도 디기디나 라신이 쩨마 많이 바지 계속바이나 기부 충유에 라미를 바스 줄에 깨와래 제가 디니기 쩨마 많이 바 마게 바네야 디니기 삼단 디니기 냠르제류에 띵 켜바지 깨와치마이나 디니기 원도 고바 띵 켜바지 토구도 선 마tum데 탑미노 선 디니기 삼도 야네 야도 장뒤급 땅뒤급라 기부 충유에 투모와 라미를 바로 장고를 당하죠 로장 되네 로장네 누야네 야도 섬다딘 쥐마 많이 베께서나 기부 총나 투모 많이 베 남기 림바지 아주 줄에 깨와라 남줄에 깨와라 제가 깨와 치마에네 잠 이제 잔슈심나서 냠는 제투에게 띠엔 캐바지 원대 고방데 토구도 선배 섬로디 쥐마 많이 베께바이나 아네 가소래 개우 충원의 투모람 일이 맞길래 개와래 예제 다 제마 많이 맞게반 되니기 토고도 선배서 섬로 야네 다 장비갑라 다 기부 충원의 투모람 일이 발로 장고래 예제 내내 장 제마 많이 베게네 기부 충 투모 많이 베람 투모람 일이 맞길래 개와래 예제
So the reflection here has differing components. So there's the component of recognizing that I've achieved this remarkable opportunity in this life, but it is finite, and I may well fall to the lower realms. And what makes this rebirth so remarkable is that I can achieve the goals of a spiritual practitioner. I can progress towards attaining enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And so this particular part involves many reflections, such as the importance of ethics, generosity, and so forth, but also how others and myself are no different in wanting happiness, wanting to be freed of suffering. But they require, just like I still do, a skilled guide to lead them to attain liberation. One generates then, to some degree, a wish to become that skill guide. So these are the normal steps of the meditation that we're very familiar with. But in our particular context here of the trainings which are shared with the practitioner of initial capacity, what one is looking to develop at this point as being the measure of having successfully completed one's trainings which are shared with the practitioner of initial capacity is the uncontrived determination to accumulate the causes for further excellent rebirths in order to continue our progression towards enlightenment. So it's because we are not engaging in the trainings of a being of initial capacity, but rather that are shared with the being of initial capacity, we require to have a motivation of the great scope of the Mahayana. But this will not at all be uncontrived. This will be contrived. We'll still need to generate it. What needs to be uncontrived for when we have completed our trainings that are shared with the practitioner of initial capacity is this clear understanding that I have to always ensure my mind is such that I'm accumulating causes for ongoing excellent rebirths in order to continue my training to attain eventual enlightenment.
다 지진 치마 돈열로 개바세 다 기부 충유 투모라 미름 보고 묘직들이다. 난 이베들은 지진 치만 디베 탑된 바시도 지진 치만 디베 탑된 바. 지나다 지진 치만 디베 탑된 바라도 지상 군원도 그번 되네게 톱 고도스면 군노 디케네 다 톱에 된다로 유가를 탑세는 유시오래. 디 톱에게 규제와 치미기 아니까서 원도 디기 탑된 바 디베 탑된 바 원도 고번 톱에 유 원도 고번 된대려야 안 디기 야게 튕긴데 주에게 규디 주고 그래서 탑대 디 규디 가라서 넘겨서 이 안에 야도 쉬고래 디제다 제가 다 되네 원료 고방 토비 치동이 다 류가 유스 요건에 샤리아 뇌바사와 지금에 셈베가 류가서 예저도 두신 지금에 셈베 두신 수름 소야 되네 되네 수름 소야 디용 원료 고방 토비 규치하고래 수름 소 다 수름 소 당원료 고방 토바서 니고 마 지와지면 원료 고방 토바는 튕기에 다 되니게 마다베나 강아지는 최념네 제야 고고가 말하다 제가 최 념네 고가 브레야기 된다라 아니 가서 튕기에 야포 강아 마체야기 튕기에 야포 야야 된다라 아니 류가 유때 소수기 당이 류로제 잔례야 진바 땅에서 땅이 진바 땅이 셈바 자야 되래 류가 이순이 관에 샤는 뇌바 지금에 셈베 삼당 되네 소수기 류가 유스미 관에 샤리야 판바 땅에 소수기 변조 샤례야 당지 로봇지기 셈비 도시네 진동의 셈바 공야 디제네 안 직텔 서버로 와든 진 생규 뇌바 제반들 바 콩랑메 셈베 삼다다 되니게 서버 공야 디제 되네 준주이다 되니게 냠네 제 고고브라 빼 야고래 최 냠네 제 셴 되니게 디낭이 무디니 지기 셈베다 야부 시우인 셈베다 가오곰 준주이게 준주이게 되네 안다 되네게 개와 개절 될라 되네 뭐바나 아니 지电商部问题国防电开发权拖把那让给人这个南马的用我所写一些南马地产的确需要国家不知道啊的那个推荐车上厂用我说是没那么简单其实的起码人这边他电把他地的另外是你这边出什么说呀给我起码问题国防拖呀第一段大了另外是国你觉得没出什么说呀你别你们家随便你们家尊重你们家安的没那么大呀的钱我的应该的지사다 치만 되어디베 탑된 바서 디섬다야 되다.
First, just to repeat the attitude one needs to strive to, one needs to develop to the level of being uncontrived. In other words, it spontaneously arises within one. It doesn't need to be intentionally generated. And this is the motivation to accumulate, the motivation and awareness that I need to continuously accumulate the causes that will lead to ongoing excellent rebirths in order to continue my lifetime's journey of spiritual progression towards the attainment of Buddhahood. Then, a second component, so that is what the motivation one needs to cultivate to the point of being uncontrived in order to have successfully trained in the practice of shared with the practitioner of initial capacity. Then the method then secondly, the method to actually ensure one does achieve these ongoing excellent rebirths is to cultivate the 5 causes. So that firstly, one reflects on ethical restraint through recognizing that in order to achieve a further excellent rebirth, the primary or the sole cause of being born in the higher realms is ethics. So therefore one meditates on ethics, cultivating the determination to restrain one's behavior from bringing harm and restrains one's speech from bringing harm. So one commits in this way in all circumstances to be ethical. Then secondly, one reflects that whilst that ethics is the primary cause to achieve a further excellent rebirth, being born as in the high realms is insufficient to have a life of freedom or a life of leisure where one can engage in the Dharma wholeheartedly. One also needs to have at least a certain level of material comfort. Therefore, one engages in meditating on the second cause, that of generosity, developing the wish to give of oneself in varying ways and circumstances. Thirdly, one reflects on patience, the determination not to respond in a harmful manner, but to keep one's mind subdued in the face of any form of adversity. Then fourthly, one meditates on joyous perseverance, developing a positive outlook, a mind that takes delight in engaging in virtue, a mind that takes pleasure in engaging in virtue. And then finally, one makes excellent prayers such as to attain ongoing excellent rebirths, to always meet a Mahayana spiritual friend, to have a deep and abiding faith in the Dharma, and so forth. So this then is the method side. the various methods by which one needs to cultivate in order to achieve the desired result.
Tarpa tamji kimi ko wa de lam nyam len je tu ye gi den che ba je ngon jo ko wang to ko du san be gi kun to ko san bi kun no de xie di kun no je kun ne di kun no di kun ne la je da di to be ge don da la an lu ngai su ni chi be chu dun so ya jin ba sam da ya se ba kom ya zhen de zhen ya mo lam ja de ding da ding a di 기부 총원의 투모와 남이로 검세 디삼다 냠는 제베는 기부 총원의 투모와 남이를 벌로 전거를 냠는 지고래 디 내게 되는 좀 많이 받치게 제가 좀 냠는 지기는 기부 총원 투모 남이를 뭔고서 이게 남이를 뭔고서 이게 제 냠는 지고래 don다.
To summarize what I've presented thus far, this is how one engages in the trainings shared with a practitioner of initial capacity or of small scope. So this is divided into two parts, one being the motivation and the second being the method or technique. So the motivation is we strive to develop a wish or a determination that's uncontrived. So initially it will be contrived, or we'll need to intentionally generate it or manufacture it. And this is a determination to continue to achieve excellent rebirths and to attain from lifetime to lifetime excellent rebirths, so that one can continue one's spiritual progression towards the eventual attainment of Buddhahood. So therefore, we have these components of wanting to achieve an excellent rebirth, but in order to continue our spiritual progression towards enlightenment. That is the motivation, and by repeating our habituation or familiarity with it, it will eventually become uncontrived. Then the second part is that of method. The first was motivation, the second is method. There one engages in the 5 meditations on ethics, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, and stainless prayer.
지산 치마 되니지 딱게와 치마 원도 고모 토고도 선비게 삼로도 게랑 아주 게 하고 지거로 와다 지사 디게 하고 지게 디게가 돈달아야 안 가르치 월스네 지산 게와 야가소레 아무들 삼로 가려서네 시와 딩거 말에 가서 아주 시기와 말에 시기 말에 선비 삼로 쉬어야 돼 디네 위에 봐서 디 삼로 위에 봐서 될이야 년부 맞된 번에 시와 딩거 말 시와 말이나 개와 치마 딩거 말와 제가다 디 개와 치마게 되니게 돈이게 로게게 돈하게 탑람라 만줄이야 아니 가소레 치와 공고그래서 치와 마군비 예믹 치와 공비 폐회 아니 치와 공비로 지다 기술 아니 치와 지다 검수세대 순거로와 제가 되네서다 안쪽에 가서 아주 기승이 막 할수 버릇은 치와 마군 바이나 균 가려요래람나 제사대 시와 호란 시기에 선배 삼로마다 왜나 아주 기디나 시기 말에 선배 삼로 요제 한계와 치마 딩고 말에 계와 치마 말에 바제 세디자자게 삼다지나 내기 아주게 소수게 지게 자와래가 되게 가르쳐나 디네 세디자야 삼다마도 세치마 원료고 마토베 주름소야다 진변냠네 쇠변냠네 제도 용토고 말와 제가 계와 치마 딩고 말와 디네 인자다 치와 말에 바이나 안계와 세디자야게 자와 삼로 자자 코르제 내가 자야 제제 안계와 안 가실에 아주레 디 세디게 개와 치마게 야보야게 개와 두고 말에 아니 개와 아만 디버서게 디바디 본 샤야게 디용 말에 제사디 개와 치마 마딘비게 치와 마딘비게 괜레스 치와 젬바이나 아니 디도저 오다시도 그래다 신의 개와 치마 개와 렌도 디네 개와 렌바이나 되게 개와 치마 개와 렌세다 가서다 된르니마도 요 말제사 나솔께나 아니 강아데네데 요르 제사 된르 개호도 제사 된 가솔 개와나 냠내제 고급기는 요말 된들 교호를 선배디 뭐 된로 개와치마 돈이 듬바디 기리에서 제산 개와치마 돈이 맞게와 된 아주 치워 맞으면 교회에 제산 치워 공고를 해서 직접 chiwa magobe gyun lese. Dan chiwa gomba ina penyen gayo resene, chisan chiwa gomyo de oda shidu kabla, dan nyen da nyedu da sosu ge yubenjo karina peng marhe, dan shidu kabla kiro de chwe de mado yo mar, chisan de penyen chwe de re samje, di de samdaji de chwe nyemne jigi je go hop de go rese. Dan azu kesingi di ba de shu sare de chisan chiwa gombe ge penyen sa di ba de shu sare. chiwa ma gombe gyun ma song sa shu sare, de chiwa gombe penyen di rese de kesingi di ba de shu bare.
This, in terms of the meditation in the trainings shared with the practitioner of initial capacity, there are those two components, one being the motivation and the other being the method. That motivation, the uncontrived wish to attain ongoing excellent rebirths in order to progress towards enlightenment, this is something that you will have all heard about many times and will intellectually accept. But yet, despite having heard about this many times, generated it in meditation, it still does not yet pervade your life, pervade your very way of thinking. In other words, it's not yet uncontrived. And the reason why it is not yet uncontrived, why it has not been developed to the point of being uncontrived, is because we still are to meditate successfully or to completion on the impermanence of this life. We are not yet anything more than intellectually accepting that death will come. Intellectually, we all know that death is certain, and we all know the time of death is uncertain. But we do not recognize how we truly are living every moment within the shadow of potential death. This is still something that is very far from our thought process. In fact, it could be said it's completely absent. So in order, therefore, to make the motivation of a practitioner, to generate this motivation that is shared with a practitioner of initial capacity, to generate it to the level of being uncontrived, we have to meditate successfully first on the impermanence of this life, or on death and impermanence. So that is what's brought us to the chapter we're at now, with its 4 outlines. The faults of not being mindful of death, followed by the benefits of being mindful of death. Thirdly, what kind of mindfulness of death should be cultivated, and then finally, the actual method, how to cultivate mindfulness of death. So of those 4, we've looked at the first entirely, that being the faults of not being mindful of our death. So going through those, meditating on them, it's a constant reminder of where we are, because we still are living without this awareness of our potential death or our pending death. And therefore these faults are a reflection on our way of thinking. So the faults include that the faults of not being mindful of our death is that it prevents us from sincerely striving at all times to accumulate the causes that will lead to ongoing excellent rebirths. And secondly, that our attempts to accumulate those causes, to cultivate virtue, remain comparatively weak. And thirdly, that procrastination and laziness of distraction remains dominant in our lives. And fourthly, that our attachment and anger readily arises, leading to the ongoing accumulation of non-virtue. So faults like these come about because we are not mindful of our death. And to present these faults in a more concise manner, it's that our mind continues to be dominated on achieving this life's pleasures, despite the fact they have no real value. And our mind stays dominated on overcoming this life's problems, despite the fact that they are actually quite insignificant, and they too are temporary. So to be able to overcome our current position of where the faults of not being mindful of death are still so strong within us, we also need to be aware of the reality that when our death comes, another rebirth such as we've achieved now is by no means guaranteed. We still have the causes on our continuum and are creating further causes that, should they ripen at the time of death, will lead to rebirth in the lower realms. And once there, not only is our suffering intense and too intense to engage in much accumulation of virtue, but we lack the mental capacity to do anything about a situation or to strive in virtue, to strive in the Dharma. This will be beyond us, and therefore we will be trapped in the intense suffering of the lower realms for an immense period of time. So these are the four outlines. The first was of the faults. So we've looked at those and completed looking at those last weekend. Then we started to look at the benefits of being mindful of death, the second of the four outlines. And here we started to look at these and recognize that what we value so in this life is actually transitory, and the value that we associate with these things is exaggerated. Here we think of, in particular, our loved ones, as well as our friends and our possessions. None of these can accompany us into our next life. None of them can help us at the time of our death. But all the imprints accumulated whilst striving in our relationships, to accumulate possessions and so forth, those imprints alone are what will accompany us. So this was the first point that we came to look at last time. So this is then where we've got up to.
Nanda chiwa sam chiwa tempa ne pain din yungure karsan gejo nyamne che de tu gure te pain de yungure se jisan dinege samda din chiwa tempa ki tona chiwa daya ki tonda la dis ma shi gorwa jisan chiwa tempa de ni garire se daya de gari tonda re se gewa chimongon de go ba toyi chedo den jamni je janju semna chasan nyamzo den nyamlen je tu yegi den kheba je monde go ba togudu se me dönyer ge yegi tonda la ni chiwa daya samla di tang gore song gore dada danda ningbo di nga zo de da gong goye zo de gar cha gore sne monde go ban kaso jamni je jenjusim nyamlen chasan je tu yegi den kheba je monde go ba togudu se dönyer ge yegi di ge go gore da zole dan ding ha zo ma ge wa gang ha cha de di ma ge re zen di ge yegi danda la chiwa dang gore ane chiwa 마음에 견디요래 견디는 삼당을 치워 공부하는 파연되는 열 삼당 거는 되게 삼당도 치워 돼야다 치워되나 어떤 제가 깨와치면 디토고 좀 돈 얘기해야 되는 거래서 너나 디슨 거래.
The outline that we are on now is the benefits of cultivating mindfulness of death. So again, it's important to be very clear why this meditation is so important. Because otherwise one may think, why are we talking about death? Or someone may ask you, why do you Buddhists go on about death so much? The reasoning needs to be, or the reason needs to be understood well. The importance of this topic needs to be understood well. And it's because of focusing on our many lives to come that we will develop a determination that accumulating the causes for future lives is of central importance to how we live this life. To have at the forefront of our mind the need to engage in certain activities, to refrain from others, in order to accumulate the causes for ongoing excellent rebirths, in order to continue our progression towards our eventual attainment of enlightenment. So this is why this topic is so important. And the reflections here are something that all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have meditated on deeply. It is indispensable in order to eventually come to attain the paths of a bodhisattva and to progress and eventually attain enlightenment. So therefore, we should follow the example of all these great practitioners and put energy into our ongoing meditation on the process of death and impermanence.
치워 공부이나 당한주기 지게 개와 침상 주회기 근데 풍선 소바 영향이 기위 냠는 지역이 풍선 소바 영향이 권하시리스 권하이 고요바는 나로 가르는 주야요로 고면은 야샤는 주야면로 제가 치워 전바이나 치워 전바디 내려 되는 한주기 풍선 소바 개와 치마 아니 가서 개 디보 보야나 개와 주회기 풍선 소바 영향이 권하시리스
So where we are going to start is a second of the main points within this outline, and it expresses that the meditation on death and impermanence is the very doorway to accumulating all excellences. And all excellences refer to accumulating the causes that will lead to excellent rebirths, that will lead to liberation and even enlightenment. So this meditation is the doorway to achieving such goals.
Da dorna jibi duen jubi duini den khebarajen ane topdu dekuna yimbe yinlasa ogol parcher ngandro dejing dejo lenre zam oyang migumbe neso shechewe der chujube gab manela jube chobe denre topna yang chue chijundu midubani dadung michi nyamba dila tutu benas.
So turning to the text in the handout book, the e-book, in the middle of page 92, and the published book, in the last paragraph at the bottom of page 81. In brief, the time for accomplishing the goals of beings is only at this time when we have gained a special human body. We mostly remain in lower rebirths, and even if we make it to fortunate rebirths just once, they are predominantly places lacking freedom, so that we do not find an opportunity to accomplish the Dharma. If we gain a body suited to accomplishing the Dharma and still do not accomplish it properly, it is because of the thought, I am not going to die yet.
Zandan dorna si de ngze gang ya da chiwa kom ko ya da ande chiwa kom be ka phan ya da ma kom ba ne gyun yo re se ti she ban za dor du na pa ning bo su du she song she ba na ka re se ne da na de su ka re se ne ji bi de den ju bi du su du de re se jeng an zo ji bi de we de de ka re se ne dewa de wa dewa de ba za de 대화 님이 직진서 많이 띵기 대화 탈반 탐지 캠고 봐 되는 닝보디 디르와 디주고 거레스 디주비 디디게 디레라네 땡 개발전 톱디 디코나레스 디자 아주 디링이 땡 개발 원도 거봐 톱디비 땡 디레마도 제 땡이야 주투야 거벼 말레스 제산 디코나레스 아주야 땡 개발전 톱디 디코나레스 제자다 아주 개와 치마 대디 안아서 원도 거봐 토비치도 아니 주름소야 진바다야 수배 냠내 주는 냠내 제아레 안 탈비 거봐 토비치도 내중게 아니 진바도 수는 저 팔진 소주게 냠내 제아레 되네 산조 거봐 토비치도 잠니제게 잔주sem께는 디군내라데 팔신주게 냠내 제아레 제가 원도 거봐 된 딜마도 나설게는 된 냠내 제도요 말레스 제가 된 캐버전 원도 거봐 된 캐버전데 된 캐버전시도 저기 단주 루틴식으로 단주 루틴 디코나레스 코나인라 세상 델마도 주야고 고합 디수 요말때 디수 약수 디데서다.
So looking at this first paragraph, in brief is the benefits of this meditation are, in brief, the time for accomplishing the goals of beings is only at this time. So the goals of beings refers to these three goals of the Dharma. The goals of accumulating the causes that will lead to ongoing excellent rebirth, such as we've each achieved in this life, and not only achieving excellent rebirths, but achieving them in order to progress towards liberation or even enlightenment. That is the goals of beings. The beings here refers to the goals of spiritual practitioners, will be one of those three. And so for ourselves, engaging in the trainings shared with the practitioner of initial capacity, we have as our goal enlightenment. And in order to achieve enlightenment, we need to continue to achieve excellent rebirths. And as the text continues, for accomplishing the goals of beings is only at this time when we have gained a special human body. A special human body refers to this precious human rebirth that we've all achieved. This human rebirth, qualified by all 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. This is what we've all achieved. And this then is the time that we can achieve these goals of the Dharma.
아니 지기 아주 탈바다 탐지킨 벽고 쭉 두고 얼와 디네자 된 채와리 세송로 진짜 지발 디난 지발 된 채발진 톱에 진짜 된 채와데 디 디코나리스 마도 제 나서 개발에 디네 ям레제 고고요 말에 세송으로 바데 진짜 된 채와지.
So this links entirely with what we looked at earlier when we looked at the chapter on precious human rebirth. Within that chapter, there was the discussion on why this rebirth is so valuable, why it's so meaningful, and this we see expressed here. So this word of being of greatly meaningful is here translated as accomplishing the goals, or it could be said as accomplishing the meaning of beings, or the purpose of beings. So here these two link up clearly. Our precious human rebirth is so valuable because it can accomplish the goals of beings, namely ongoing excellent rebirths in order to attain enlightenment.
그래서 먼저 개비 뒤비 뒤행하는 뒤에도 탈바다 템지게 보고 막 띵기 디기 토야 되고 해야 되리 가지고 고야 되리스 제산 디 주역이 유주역이 뒤시티 다데 원되고 봐된 다하라마도 디코나레에서 어두시선데 디네기 다디스마도 신로장하지데 된다 삼당에도 기진야마 다줄리데 된체와레 삼다데라 다데 다디디게 삼다데야 예마게 삼다들이 뉴버들 막 휴게는 막 셔를 제시는 제산 된체와 임바데 녀발 마선의 휴셔로 받는.
So our goal for practitioners such as ourselves who aspire to engage in these trainings is so that we can achieve eventual enlightenment. So this is our goal, and this is the life where we can set on accumulating the causes that will lead to our own attainment of enlightenment, and to do so in order to be of greatest benefit to others. So what I'm wanting to draw your attention to is how what is presented here in this chapter builds on what we were looking at earlier. Because in this way, we meditate on each topic as they come up, with an emphasis on each topic as it comes up, but it's not divorced from what we looked at previously, but rather the newer topic builds on what one meditated on before, and thereby one flows in a progression from the prior topic to the current topic. And this is how all the meditations here in the Lamrim work.
안데 코나레 임비다 임바 김제로 오골을 생각하면서 시오래 오골을 생각하면서 팔체 nen줄 대징 안저 개와 뭔데 nen줄이야 bên 아주 미 뭔데 고방 토바다 nen줄 마케와치는 망체와 nen줄 마케요 그래서 망체의 개자견의 집은 bên 딱 개자 구주로지만 nen줄 마케 돼요. 진짜 nen줄을 끼에도 배 융융차돼요. 그래서 제가 오골 팔체와 나서 나시다 나서 차사 근데 망체와디 팔체 간르디 바르 간르 끼와렌디요 레제레 다 디네 덴드로 렌제 잠 원야 까브릴리아데 덴드로를 끼고레스 덴드로 끼고때 이내양 안에 원장 제와장 미군 베니에서 시체베스데 하지 밀용원도 고방 밀하다 미고방을 토베네 최제야 고가 말하데 망체와레서 그러다 원도 미군 베니에서 안에 최근에 제세메디간 최근에 고야메디간 도시네 제기 미콘베 최지하게 아주 최 제세 여배네 소속에 레가다 둥기 돈에 강한 태지된 최지야 고가 말아봐 좀 미콘베네 제사데 댄주글리딘 토요 말아 제사데 미콘베네 빼나 저게 직 최제세디 고가 지 여배나 더 소속에 둥기에다 돈에 강한 시우 여배네 디던데 레가레 제디어 최지야 고라고 말아봐 미콘마 차로 아주 최지야 고배네 지 요새나 소속에 지 네 나자다 강아 피부 주에는 야 니게 이제 최시 두고 말아 제가 니게 제가 미군 변에서 시체베스 대사 최주비게 값 많이라 니게 최시하고 말아 저거 말해 제대나
Lama Tsongkhapa continues. We mostly remain in lower rebirths. So here we need to remind ourselves that, and again, this links to what we reflected on with the precious human rebirth, that it's very rare for a being to arise from the lower realms, for finally the karma there to be exhausted, and for them to attain a rebirth in the higher realms. Moreover, again, as was presented in that chapter, it's very rare for a being in the higher realms to remain in the higher realms when they die. But the vast majority fall again into the lower realms. So therefore, this is equally applicable to ourselves. The vast majority of our rebirths have been in the lower realms, and only on rare occasions such as this have we emerged into these higher rebirths. We mostly remain in lower rebirths, and even if we make it to fortunate rebirths just once, they are predominantly places lacking freedom. So this term freedom or leisure was a term again in the prior chapter on precious human rebirth that we looked at. From the perspective of the Dharma, a human rebirth that lacks freedom is a rebirth that whilst one has attained a rebirth as a human being, one lacks the freedom or the leisure to be able to engage wholeheartedly in spiritual development. For example, one may be impoverished, and therefore, just to sustain one's life, one has to put all one's time and energy into trying to earn a living just to stay alive. Or similarly, one may be, again, have a human rebirth, but severely ill or disabled, and thereby one's freedom to engage in the Dharma is greatly impeded. Or one may be born as a human, but be in an area where one does not have the freedom to engage in the Dharma because perhaps there is a tremendous amount of danger, either within your own life or in the area that one's in, and therefore one lacks the leisure or the freedom to engage in the Dharma. So this is the situation for the vast majority of human rebirths.
데니기 송여데 나라서 소소라 삼다베네 제가 다른 가지고 덴절이야 원기되어 책으로와 덴절기에디에 이내다 미공베니 시체와 세디 말와다 가서 미공베니를 타죠 덴주글이 톱되어와 제가 미공베니 시체에 쉐주비 고가 많이 해 봐서도 말와다 가서 삼단다 미공베니를 타 덴주글이 톱되어서 쉐주비 고가 많이 해 봐도 말에 고가 니되어와 디네 삼다마나 아나즈기 고합티 배약부레샤 세베소소 보보기에 와야다 안니 배약부 중시하다디 네 무지제디 약부 지긴 셈비다 삼로 고노 마서 마서 보보기에 와야 차고로 와다 많이 바디던다요 제가 다데 가서 룰레 삼다마나 미공베네 시체를 깨베 최주베 갑니 말이라와 당하수 데네 많이 받은 하수 루틴 가래라네 미고 베니엘에 타와와 제자도 추르비 갑 많이 봐 말 추르비 갑 녀바도 차려와 디네 삼다는 아주 리든다 된주밀리 톱 추르비 갑 녀체 고고비에도 바다저 아주 갈가슴 추르지 갈가슴 제디고 빼 약부를 샤선비게 소소 뽑어기에 지다 디네게 약부딩이 배주에 다지 철라마다지 무뒤지 냠네 지인 선비게 당주 닝도 비와데 차고도 와서
The sentence concludes with, so that we do not find an opportunity to accomplish the Dharma. So this then is the presentation of a rebirth that lacks freedom. So the purpose of this presentation then is twofold. And again, from what you heard a few months ago when we looked at precious human rebirth, none of this you'll be hearing for the first time. And so this shows how when one meditates on a later topic, you should bring your meditations from prior topics to this point, because they do build one upon the other in this sequence. So the purpose of this meditation includes that we come to recognize the great value of this rebirth and its rarity and difficulty in attaining. And so as to challenge this misconception that we have, where we take this precious human rebirth for granted, where we see it as commonplace and assume we'll have another one again. These assumptions are not based on how things actually are. But to the extent one comes to really value this rebirth, the impact it has on one's mind is one's mind becomes joyous. One recognizes that one holds within one's hand all that is required to ensure ongoing excellent rebirth, to live a life of great meaning. So reflecting this way should have the outcome in your meditations of your spirits being lifted, of your mind becoming light and joyous, and also developing a deep confidence inside through recognizing that what we each have attained has come about in dependence on the causes we have accumulated. Therefore, no, none of this is beyond us. So this is the outcome of these meditations, not to take what we have for granted, not to see it as commonplace, but then by valuing it, to have a joyous mind and a confidence about what we can still achieve.
냠내치 줍투에게 띠인디 약고지야 톱되어데 톱나양 당아주 최 추신의 마주바디 망부차걸 와다 냠내 뿌다보다 약고지 마토바 안돼서 세변에 뿌다고 약고지 마도 추신의 마주바디 용고를 봐 제산 추신의 마주바디 용고래스 레르 원도 소야 나디네기 전에 다다 제마토바디 용고를 봐다.
Lama Tsongkhapa continues. If we gain a body suited to accomplishing the Dharma and still do not accomplish it properly, so this word properly can also be translated as correctly. So in other words, if we stay dominated by thoughts like we looked at last time, of laziness and laziness in terms of being distracted by things of no real value, by the various activities of this life, or by procrastination, if that continues to be the case, we will not accomplish the Dharma properly. We'll apply ourselves, but we'll not achieve much because of not practicing properly or correctly.
디네게 어두세 다 디네게 추진도 주바세디 저기 대치기안에 데스제나 무티제 제마토야라서 받아지로다 아직 제베네 따다 야고라 제마토바 데스제한 샤샤 디네게 지 뿌이다고 제마토바 아직 야고 제마토바 안 데스제나 아직 무티네 제마토바로 두용거레스 디가르 견레스네 데도 미치냐 반딜라 투투베스 안 삼나라 마시 마레스 베삼로지 로 행겔이야 게디나 디네 삼로지 예되레스 디기 견제버레 예시다 데네기 최냠래 야고치 마도바딩 아주 제고 고급 된 차산이 된 여바제 튕겨 차산 상되바는 아주 너 부이다고 야고시 요지 제마도바디 가르치 너주 쇼거래라네 소소 삼로나래야 땅에 식마레 선배 삼로 쇼레스 딩안주 숙심부가 되게 디기 견진에 안에디 최념의 제기 야구 수준제 뿌이다고 제대 용거 말해 제래.
The reason for not accomplishing it properly or not practicing the Dharma fully is because we do not do so continuously. I'm sure that many of you have the habit of doing some meditation, you take pleasure in reading Dharma books and receiving teachings and so forth, but one's mind is not continuously on the Dharma. Moreover, so therefore our Dharma practice becomes sporadic. Moreover, when we do practice, our motivation is still very much influenced by the 8 worldly concerns, and therefore our motivation is weak. And the reason for this, Lama Tsongkhapa then continues, it is because of this thought of, I am not going to die yet.
근데 신디 마차기 말씀 별로지 뒤고로 와시라요 뭐 라바치 보게 신디 파 차락선 차기거든 남상 뒤고로 와서 그래서 강보다 한국 매매네 바로 뒤로 그러면 한국 민도신 뒤고 말와 저 남상 강보다 채마수 나가시는 바 뒤로 와 그래서 이 말 진행하시고 휴지래데 시에기다 뒷마 자선 와 시기래서 거와 진짜 시에 스타트 디시에들에 타려야기 된다고 봐 아주 뒤고로 와 진짜 되니기 진짜 되니게 남사 되니실에 ಬಂದು 남사 되르고로 가리네 기엔 가리나 한국면에 잘라가 라베네 근데 아주 폰디게 남유네 자침부터 파샤나 디와 라베나 디 뒤로면지 바유션 되르고 와다 가리나 샤샤지 줘야게 됩시단 그러와 제가 디 되니게다 롱축까지는 디 차사 말해서 내가 믿었으면 디를 되기로 하든지 어디나 신앙을래 된 개발전 토로요 된 아주 시기에서 삼로 메디 안에 relation 되잖아 아주 제디게 자원주비하다도 전에 최야보지 두고 말해서 제가 되니게 시기에서부터 그 되니게 시에게 삼로 빼 야고 콜투고에는 어다 최디 냠는데 야보지 두고 그래 제네 야보 연구를 해서 그래.
So you can call to mind an analogy of it being a lovely day, and we're sitting perhaps in a beautiful park under a large tree. So it's a nice warm day, and we're sitting there relaxed, everything's quiet and peaceful. And we're sitting there, really having a lovely day. Then suddenly, an unexpected strong gust of wind comes, and the whole tree starts to shake violently. Immediately, what will happen inside is fear will arise. Suddenly we recognize our life is in danger, and we'll spring into action and run from being under that tree just in case it happens to fall on us. We won't need to think or plan, we will go. And we may even leave behind us in our desperation to protect ourselves, we may even leave behind what we value most, our precious mobile phone. And if the tree happens to fall down and we lose our phone, well, at least I've got out there okay. And from the perspective of an actual Dharma practitioner, this is how most people live their lives. It's like they're sitting under a tree on a beautiful sunny day without a care in the world, with no awareness that at any moment their lifespan can come to an end and the next breath could be in a new body. So from the perspective of the Dharma, that is how most people live their life, as if they are without a care in the world, but their death is drawing ever closer.
아주 미시세 대 매워서야 삼도 가르당 거라서 임치 시그리에 선배 시에게 타주 벗습니다. 더 그디싱 해봐요 말해서 몇삼다데 지요 시에 타주 시그리에서 시에 타주 벗 남치 애매 삼다데 되네 삼다데 어다 시그리에 그디싱 해봐요 말해 삼다데도 되네서 나다데 최하고 좀 맞아봐는但是你对我细说那确实要过不来个么多，但你别啥啥的，给我起码讲说呢，电视过完偷马了哇，身边，其实的这个的米奇那边三楼的对了，没把水了呀，你不看的定我是呢，七个身边什么大呀的，的军车嘛，西个这个军车什么的， 남지 예배요 말했으면 남지 예배 삼다 되다. 디 삼다도 미시에 sembe 삼로도 도고래. 시기리 남지 게디싱 해봐요 말했어요. 남지에서도 산이시 나니시 로제마시 다디시 주주진이 제일 시리에서 간다. 게디싱 해봐요 말 게임 간다시나 용구에서 삼다 되잖아요. 그리고 디마 겁나도 원 마슨 거다 지데 디레 저요 바생이 주셔고.
This lack of awareness illustrated in that through that example comes from not being aware of the certainty of our death, not living with this understanding that the time of our death and the manner of our death is uncertain, not living with this understanding that with each breath, this life is one breath closer to its end. So what we need, and then thirdly, the result of this, what this actually means, is that when our death comes, our opportunity to accumulate the causes for further excellent rebirths and ongoing progression towards enlightenment, that opportunity will be finished. So later in the chapter, we come to look at these 3 points of the actual meditation, which are firstly the certainty of our death, secondly the uncertainty of the time and manner of our death, and then thirdly what that means, that our opportunity to practice the Dharma will be done.
디네게 당은 미시샘에 삼는 될 투도야스. 제가 르 미시위 초진반이 그거군이고스. 제가다 르 미시위 초진반이 그거군이고레스.
Then Lama Tsongkhapa continues, therefore this mind that holds the position of not dying is the door to all manner of degeneration.
이자다 미시 이선비기 딘딩이 삼다의 구보군이 고래에서 유엔 차상 내려드는 용고래지. 지산 딘에서 구보시된 아주 유엔 용라야 되시고와 용거래고는 미시 이선비 삼로유도 아니 치에 삼로도 최시게 냠는지에 고래고 말 디바샤야라기 샤고 말드네 개어두고 말해서 지사데 아니 딘이 미시 이선비 삼로유도 디기 세디 되 강아저게 체디잠기 된다두비에 된다려야 안되샤야 당 콘로게 된 녀몽바게 용나게게 되니게 제진 디번에 사고레스 지난 디바 사이드디 아니 개와치마 디바 사는 강아저리야 되니 바 디비기 제보들 나서라게 동아 용어에 용차사차야 디디르고 지난 용어라야기 고디 디리에서 당아줄래 용어라야 고디 기왕아 시마레 선배 삼로 초진비기 초 삼로 다야디 당아줄래 개와 사마주에 디리 디바샤마주에 대 삼로 디디는 용거래 지난 삼로 디토네 가지고 세디잠기 자와를 양제 디바 다마라 사고래 지난 디바 사이드 데비디 안가설게 동안 용과 차고래 지난 구바스 꽤 대소 요야기 대소리더니 거래에서 디소라 구바군이 고세야디 치마레 선배 삼주여와 구벌도 라가데 가집주 구다 구. 말하면 구이바시올. 구이바시데 규엔시올. 규엔다. 강아 구이바시로.
So the meaning of this, therefore this mind that holds the position of not dying is the door to all manner of degeneration. So what is meant by degeneration here is that, on one hand, we have an intellectual understanding of what is our potential, that we can accumulate the causes that will lead to ongoing excellent rebirths, and we can do so fairly easily because we have done so in lives previous to this. And we can also accumulate the causes that will lead to our ongoing progression towards enlightenment. But rather than that, if one remains with a mind that's distracted by the attainment of and enjoyment of this life's transitory pleasures and the avoidance of this life's insignificant problems, as long as we continue like that, we will not accumulate much in the way of virtue, we will not purify much in the way of past non-virtue, and we will also not bring an end to the accumulation of further non-virtue. So in this way, by not being mindful of our death, we will continue in this process of degeneration and not at all fulfill our potential.
다 치워 덴바니 푼손 소바 탐지 요고스.
Then this point concludes with, whereas mindfulness of death is the door to all excellence.
제단다 푼손 소바 세대 유푼손 소바 제부 푼손 소바 제단 유푼손 소바 내가 지금 푼손 소바 세대다 아주 유푼손 소바 베네 아주 개와치마 원dio 거방 도외체의 대시 시바네 내가 아주 주름 송야 진복 진배냠네 세배냠네 준내냠네 지야지게체 디 제보 야고디는 개와치마 원dio 거방 도 딘데레이나야 는 최제야 냠네 거고려 바치체자 아 유푼손 소바 세대 개와 그래서 코에 동아 타달에 탈되게 삼바 군노게 군이 뒤라데 진바도 추림라서 봐 아니 발지 진소주게 냠는제 니 냠는제 발에 때네 대부분 서봐 동아 녀모 사번에 제바 빵비 빵바 탈비고 봐도야 즉 규푼선 서봐 내가 지금 심제 탐지라 잠바데 니조금 심제 탐지도 산조고 봐 토벌쇼 세 장주 심게 장주 심 유군에 라데 다짐 진바하 진소 파진 중에 냠는제 냠는 규푼선 소바다 규푼선 소바 초도 규바제 디 냠는 제발할 때 대부 초도 규푼선 소바다 나는 산지고 바토에 되는 거래 제자디 규푼선 소바세 규푼선 소바 대부분 소바 니 가르치는 거라서는 치워 템바 있나데 용거래 그래서 치워 템바는 어디가 시루 그래 시나 있나 아니 내 끼와 치마 원dio 거봐 가서 그래 나선을 깨봐 있나 아니 주님의 제고 그렇게 말해서 제가 랑의 주님의 제 동화 타도 말 현래 판도시도 말해 잠이 조금도 말해 제가 되는자 띵켜봐 좀 원도 거봐 토고도 내 원도 거봐 토바는 뒤에서 냠나 차사 제투 그래 세비 되는자 되는기 치워 점바에는 기와치만 원도 거봐 토야기 나 토고도 세비 돈야데 끼운 거래 제래 되는 돈야 끼네 되는 된델이야 두시는 냠나 제야기 고합되게 되네 무슨 소바 탐제 용야에게 텔레티네 용거래스 제가 지워 템바디 푼손 소바 탐지 용야가 고로시 되래 사실
So we've seen that the lack of being mindful of death is the doorway to all manner of degeneration, whereas mindfulness of death is the door to all excellence. Excellence we can understand through having two parts: excellent causes that lead to excellent results. So that excellent results will be those three results of a spirit, or desired results of a spiritual practitioner: ongoing excellent rebirths, as well as the attainment of liberation and the attainment of enlightenment. These are the three excellent results that are accumulated through their respective good causes. And the accumulation of those excellent good causes comes about in dependence on the mindfulness of death. Therefore, this is the very doorway through which one achieves the causes, the excellent causes that lead to those excellent results. So, for example, by being mindful of our death, and thereby recognizing that I am going to die and it can be at any moment, and that will mean my opportunity to practice the Dharma may well end. So I need to practice the Dharma continuously from right now. That understanding ensures that whatever we are doing, we keep our mind on the causes to achieve our desired excellent result of a good rebirth. So therefore, whatever we are doing, we ensure that our mind is ethical. In other words, not being influenced by the afflictions. That we have, where appropriate, a generous attitude. That we are patient with hardships. That we delight in engaging in virtue. And in this way, accumulate the causes at all times that lead to ongoing excellent rebirths. Moreover, if we've given rise to the wish to attain the excellent result of liberation, in addition to those four causes, one will also ensure that one's mind is not distracted, so concentrated, that one is thinking about reality, approaching things through an understanding of dependence arising and emptiness. And in this way, at all times, being aware that this may well be my final moments, my final hours, my final days, keeping one's mind on those causes, those excellent causes leading to the desired excellent result. And then finally, if one has given rise to the wish to attain the excellent result of enlightenment, then in addition to those excellent causes, one will also, at appropriate times, one's mind will be in accordance with the excellent causes of love, of compassion, and bodhicitta, and so forth, as well as those already mentioned. So in this way, by being mindful of our death, we at all times, no matter what we are doing, we are accumulating those excellent causes that will lead to our desired excellent results. And this is why mindfulness of death is the door to all excellence.
Gewa chima ina nanga diringi ine azu kara sosorgi denju ludin tok dendele ya ani chige cheche ya kokpra pe ya wo yin senpe ta sosora ge kawa komya da ani chi ngi mudu che nyamne che tuba chigin senpe ta zunju ya ani mo ba gewa chima ina ya den mudu che ani chige jamni che chanju sem nyamne che bala and deba den chaba che ondu ko ma chi nyan ma to ba ne da ani chige jamni che 나솔 마케베네데 냠네치야 고프라사 말에 제자다 디니기 잠니제 자주심 냠네치야레 탈벽고 보토에 냠네치야레 지소파진주게 냠네치야레 랑기 산지고 보는 랑니 산지고 보다 탈벽고 보토에 냠네치야바네 개와치미데라 냠네치 제야들의 띵켜바죠 원료고 보도도 현리야 판도주의에게 현리야 펜바주에네 소시 원료고 보 띵켜바지면은 나둔도 당한선 개바는 현리야 펜바주토야 용모도 제자다 랑기 된 주야다 현리 판도 주야 가리니 잠니지 전주심 냠내 야부 제투에게 된 개와 치마이네 된 개와 중원도 고바도 토바 지금 마통 탑미도 선배 토바 지인 선배 삼로디 조금 미야디다 기부 중원 투마라 미르보 kom비야디제 다디 야부 지용하게 된다라야 아는 아주 오다 기지싱해 봐 요마다스 안데 이제 기지싱해 봐 요 신의 시원은 해봐 다 줘봐래 되는 기지싱해 봐 요 말에 제산 다 되네기 내게 다디디 냠nen디게 디토베게 규디게 냠nen디게 다다는 맞아봐이나 근데 제 맞아와 섬되봐이나 언제 아마려고 말하지 바라지 시선을 뺏어기가 경험이 우라사래 디엔자다 냠nen디게 다든지 선배 삼다제 모두시는 제대다 가지고 냠nen지 디디레 제자도 조로 지가 저기 개와치만 원료고 뭐도 되니 듬바디 군로데 약보게 돼 디게게 된다라 안에 가지고 안에 가서 오래 게제 디게네 디냠nen제라 토야된들 진보추르스 발아서 냠nen제들와 제가 디냠nen제라 다우제 오다디네 마제베나 제자다 제마 없으면 그디 자샤베나 안에 그디싱해 봐요 말에 시엔이 다 줘버려 그디싱해 봐요 말 제자다 디네기 냠nen제고 거 말을 시선들 뺏사사래 선비 경라사래 섬제 오다니 디리디는 바 다데네 바 냠나 강도도 지기 선비 두신의 섬다데 제상 치와 삼다 남친이메 삼다디 다데 개와치면 원료고 보토야기 투모와 남일인 발라 냠nen제기 뭐 꾸만 마선에 주 디던날 삼다디 차고로 세상 도시는 아주 아디네 디링이 삼다디 되네제 대샤샤니고
The essence then of what we've looked at tonight is that one starts one's meditation by recognizing that we've achieved this precious human rebirth, So in particular, if this is something one's meditated on well previously, immediately joy will arise. A joy at just what I've achieved, this extraordinary result that is so rare and difficult to achieve, but has such great meaning. And with that joy comes a joyous perseverance to use what remains of this life well. And this expression of using what remains of this life well brings us into this meditation, that I am going to die, but when and how is completely unknown. But when it comes, and it is coming, my opportunity to make good use of this precious human rebirth, this will be exhausted. So now, from now, I need to continuously keep my mind in accordance with the Dharma. And thereby, one continues with one's meditation, reflecting on that I need to ensure that my life immediately after this one is not in the lower realms, and it's not a life in the higher realms that lacks freedom. I need another precious human rebirth, rebirth with all these good qualities so I can continue my process of spiritual development. I have the wish to eventually become a Buddha so that I can be of benefit to others. So to do so, I need to reflect well on the sufferings of samsara in its entirety and thereby come to develop actual love and compassion for others, developing it into bodhicitta. This is the process I need to engage in. So I need to do so in this life, to create the causes to continue for lives to come. And I need to do so now, because my own happiness depends on this. The benefit that I can be to others depends on this. So I need to ensure that I continue to gain remarkable rebirths just like this one, and do not fall into the lower realms. So in this way, we build on our reflection on precious human rebirth, coming to death and impermanence, but within the overall context of wanting to become a Buddha. And when one meditates in this way, both in the meditation and afterwards, whilst one keeps that meditation alive within oneself, one's mind will be light and joyous, as one's mind, and which is a mind that delights in engaging in virtue. And a mind that is engaging in virtue is a mind that is not afflicted. A mind that is not afflicted naturally a mind that delights in virtue is a mind that will naturally arise when one's mind is ethical, when one's mind is virtuous or generous or loving. Then the mind will be light and joyous. So this is, in brief, what we've looked at tonight. So we still have a few minutes. If you have some questions, then feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll conclude there for tonight.
Amen.
Okay, then thank you very much.